Hello, everybody. Welcome to the End Times with Jokes. I think that I'm going to change the name of this video series to the End Times with Jokes. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. Let's dive into it. And by the way, I don't normally start off with questions or comments, but Patrick had a great point about Tulsi Gabbard saying the domestic terrorism bill is a targeting of almost half of the country. And yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. We don't need any more laws taking away privacy or rights. The FBI and all of other law enforcement agencies, Homeland Security, they have all of the tools they need. Don't let your government officials tell you, oh, they need more. It's been a real problem. They haven't been able to investigate. They haven't been able to view your stuff. They haven't been able to get into people's lives or computers or households. I mean, hell, not only do they have all those tools, but we've been bugging ourselves with fucking Google Home and Amazon Alexa and Ring doorbells and really, they're like, yeah, get the new teddy bear that has a camera on its nose so it can interact with you. It needs a camera on its nose. If you could just put it in the corner of your room and just point it towards you, that would really help. It'd be fun for the whole family with the camera in its nose. It's fun. That's fun. Yeah, kind of like they did with the Ring doorbells. Really, you know what you've been missing in your life is the ability to view someone drop off a package. It's been a serious problem. People haven't been able to get by without having a spy cam on the front door. And so if you just put one there, everything's going to be right. It's going to fix everything for you. It's going to make your life just so much easier. You can find out if, some fucking dude is pleasuring himself on your porch every night. You don't know. So you got to put that Ring doorbell there. And it turns out that Ring, which is, I think, owned by Amazon, is that right? Has a deal with police departments across the nation so that they can view you from your porch, from your front door anytime they want. But yeah, you get some good jack-off videos of the guy, the public masturbator. So it's a win-win, really. You help all the police departments spy on you, and you get to watch that guy jack off on your porch. But anyway, great point up there, up top. We don't need any new domestic terror bills that give away more rights. We've given away all the rights. We've given fucking everything away. We've given our ruling elite a dictator's toolkit. And then our liberal media is like, oh my God, he's using the toolkit. Trump is using the toolkit we gave him. Fuck. So yeah, no, they don't need any more rights. So that idea is horrible. And I see someone's posting the full text of the bill. I have not read the bill yet, but I just know nothing good will come of it. Nothing good will come of it. Something else I wanted to talk about up top before I got into a larger issue and a New York Times article was let's see, the force the executive action, which I've noticed some people are like that idea that Joe Biden actually has the ability to give everyone Medicare for all right now. All he'd have to do is use Section 1881A of the Social Security Act, which says that if a area of the country has had environmental exposure, then they can be given Medicare for all. And it's been done in Libby, Montana. And we could do it all over the goddamn country. At the very minimum, you could do it until the pandemic's over, although I think we should do it forever. But at the least, you could do it till the pandemic's over. And so, maybe Force the Vote needs to segue smoothly into force the executive action. # force the executive action. But even to go back on Force the Vote for a minute, to talk about that again for a moment, I watched some of Brianna Joy Gray's debate, if you can call it that, discussion, whatever, with Sam Cedar. And there's a few things. I mean, I didn't see Sam give any good points for why we shouldn't have why force the vote shouldn't exist, shouldn't be there. It didn't. There were no good arguments given. It was just, I didn't like the tactic, and I don't like Jimmy Dore. But I want to talk about something bigger, which is, so on one level, I mean, I don't even want to be talking about this shit. Like, there should just be healthcare for everybody. It like, by getting us too hyper focused on the bickering between sides and all this shit, they're actually winning anyway. If you're sitting there just bickering, oh, so-and-so said this and so-and-so, it's like fucking high school, but with politics. It drives me goddamn nuts. And that doesn't mean I never mention what is said during these debates. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I watch them, but I still hate them. But anyway, that being said, I want to bring back the idea I talked about several episodes ago. And by the way, take a moment to please share this on your media channels, even though it'll be suppressed. But, fucking give it a try. But is the different tiers of kind of reality, the different levels of reality that we are discussing when we discuss any topic. So on the first surface level, you have the force the vote. We are trying to force, and the force the vote continues, even though it's not that particular moment with the Nancy Pelosi speakership. You could still try and force the vote on Medicare for all. It just doesn't have the added fun of doing it in exchange for voting for Nancy Pelosi for speaker. But so on surface level, you have force the vote for healthcare. Rarely, but some of the time talked about is level 2, which is healthcare should be a fucking human right. We shouldn't even be having this discussion. It shouldn't even fuck. It shouldn't even exist to sit here and have this debate about, well, let's push them. No, we can't push them to push for a vote because if we push them too hard to push for a vote, then it might hurt them. They might strain their shoulder. They're like, ow, ew, don't push them too hard to push for a vote to try and get health care down the road, like fucking 7 degrees removed. Instead, the discussion should just be healthcare as a human right. For the fuck's sake, let's join the developed goddamn world, you goddamn assholes. So that's level 2. That is sometimes discussed. Almost never discussed, or rarely, you get down to level 3 of reality of our world, of our country, which is, this is all of this problem, all of this harm, all of this destruction of human lives, it all comes down to capitalism. This, in a non-capitalist society, this wouldn't even be a discussion. You would just have healthcare. It would just be a thing you get. That would be it. Corporations owning your access to healthcare would not be a thing. You wouldn't even be able to understand what people were talking about, which really we shouldn't. We shouldn't be able to understand when a corporation says, no, we decide if you get health care. And then even if we give you health care, we're going to give you bills afterwards that are going to make your life a living hell. We shouldn't even be able to process what the fuck they're talking about. So in a non-capitalist society, you wouldn't even have this discussion. Wouldn't even be a debate. We would not be sitting here talking about, no, well, if you push AOC, then she might get upset. And you don't want to upset AOC because, then she's upset. And yeah, she's the good guy. And so you can't push. We wouldn't even be having that fucking conversation. So that's level 3. And I'll just stop at those 3 levels of reality. If you want to go down to level 4 about how we're all energy waves, and a broken bone is really just a realignment of the energy waves. So it's still your energy waves. You don't need to get the broken bone fixed. And who if your energy waves are a little off, then why have another guy who's really just other energy waves put your energy waves back into an alignment where it's like a perfectly set bone? Let's not. We don't. I mean, if you want to, you can go have that discussion. But I don't think we need to spend time on it right now. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to discuss here, which is, yes, force the vote for Medicare for all, but also we shouldn't have to have this discussion. If you really view the way our reality should work, if every decision were put through a lens of moral responsibility, of a moral universe, then people would just have healthcare. It would just be done. That would be it. But we live in a fucking profit over all else capitalist society where everything's put through the lens of fuck morality, fuck ethics. Is it profitable? Do we make enough money from it? That's the lens. We get to decide what lens we put in front of our decisions, in front of our discussions. We get to decide. And in a capitalist society, if you're going to maintain your discussion within that filter, within that lens, then it's going to be, will enough money be made? Will enough people have jobs? Will people lose jobs if we change this? That's the lens of capitalism. Whereas the correct way to live, the way we should evolve to be, is every decision for our society should put through a lens of, is it moral and is it sustainable? Those should be like top 2 on the list. And then maybe number 3, you can put a little lens, does it smell bad? Because let's not do too many things that smell bad. Because, that wouldn't be fun to be around. But those first 2 are really important. Is it moral? Is it sustainable? But of course, we can't have those discussions, right? You can't turn on your TV and hear that discussion, right? Speaking of sustainability, now we get to the topic I wanted to dig into more, which is a New York Times article. Oh, and by the way, this fits into the lenses and the different tiers of reality. I forgot to mention this. Sorry. Many of the things that they're saying Joe Biden or the Biden administration has done or is doing or is about to do. Oh, it's so exciting. Oh, look at what they're doing. You turn on CNN. Oh my God. It's so wonderful what Biden's doing. Most of it, a lot of it, is just fucking window dressing. All right. It is a little, yeah, it's better than not having that maybe, but it's not a big change. It's not a big deal. It's not a big realignment of society or of our existence in a time when we're in fucking drastic, dire situations, and we need drastic change right now. And I'll get more into that in a second. But so I want to try, and every once in a while I try and create a phrase, an idiom to go out there and filter through the universe and be used by people if they like it. So one of the jokes I used to have in my stand-up was that I can't remember what it was, but it's like when a corporation or something does something, like when they'll post like, oh, Cinnabon says Black Lives Matter or something like that. Whenever that garbage, in one of my old stand-up bits, I said it's like the Christmas lights on the pedophile's home. It's just there to make you think everything's okay. It's just there to cover up the harm that corporation does when Exxon's like, the Me Too movement, or any of that crap, or like the disabled people. I'm not saying they shouldn't have the job, but the disabled people that used to work at the fronts of Walmarts, I think they fired them all. I read an article about it, or they fired most of them, which is shitty also. But the fact that Walmart had to put a disabled person at the front door is the Christmas lights on the pedophile's home. It's just there, so you go, oh, everything's fine. Look, this is great. They got a disabled person working at the front door. Or sometimes they put a really old person there. And again, I'm not saying they shouldn't work there. I'm just saying the reason Walmart felt the need to do that was to cover up the fact they treat their workers like shit. And that they are destroying the planet, destroying all the mom and pop shops, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the Christmas lights on the pedophile home. So I think we should start using pedophile Christmas lights as an expression, and we just get to a point where you just knew what it meant. You didn't have to explain it. And the example of that today is that Joe Biden's administration has announced that they are going to follow through on Barack Obama's promise to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Boom! Real change. Change you're going to believe in. Harriet Tubman on the $20 because Trump held up the Harriet Tubman on 20 because Trump is racist, so he doesn't like to see black people anywhere. And so now Biden has announced, we're doing it. And that is a perfect example of pedophile Christmas lights. Just fucking hold that. Look, despite the fact Joe Biden, created the crime bill that has imprisoned more people of color in this country than fucking anything ever. More people are in prison. More black people are in prison right now than there were slaves when America had slavery. But that's okay because Joe Biden, have put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Pedophile Christmas lights. Okay. That's what that is. Cover up the bodies in the basement, cover up the reality, just point to that. We did it. We got Harriet Tubman on the 20. I'm not even going to, and not to mention, I know last time, that's my new thing to say, not to mention. And then, of course, you mention it. That's the whole point of not to mention. Not to mention that I assume Harriet Tubman would find it despicable and disgusting to be on the $20 bill on the representation of our profit over people, over human beings. I think she'd rather be on the name of a fucking, hospital that takes care of children or something than on a $20 bill. Like, who's to say that she would find any kind of thrill or excitement or pride out of being a representation of our capitalist system, of our profit as our Lord? I mean, it fucking says, in God we trust, on the goddamn dollar. I kind of figure that she would not be, I'm so proud to be a representation of fucking money. So there you go. Your new expression for the day, for the week, pedophile Christmas lights. So you might hear me say that in the future without getting into explaining it. I'll just throw out there, it's pedophile Christmas lights. Okay, so here we have some, it's a New York Times article. Now, unlike normally when I cover a New York Times article, this one is actually pretty good, pretty impressive. And there's a reason for that. One is that it's New York Times opinion. So lots of times they'll put something in the opinion category when they're going a little edgier, when they're going farther out on the edge, slightly outside of the Overton window, when they're willing to do things such as question capitalism in a light way that they wouldn't normally do. They put it in the opinion section. Meanwhile, all of their normal propaganda garbage, not opinion. That's not the opinion section. That is a legit facts. Propaganda garbage is fact. Opinion is kind of farther out on the edges. Now, sometimes they do this for far right-wing garbage as well. What was it? Tom Cotton was in the opinion section this past year saying maybe the U.S. military should be basically declaring war on Black Lives Matter protesters. They put that in their opinion section too. So it's not just, left-wing or edgy stuff. It's also right-wing fucking garbage is in the opinion section as well. But it's about this particular article is about climate change. And I want to show you how the New York Times normally covers climate change. Now, this article is not horrible by any means, but it shows how they normally would cover something like this. So this is another one of these kind of look how great Biden stories is a little bit that they're doing on their push to make everyone think that Biden is our savior. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. So this says new U.S. strategy will quickly free billions in climate funds. The emergency management officials aim to funnel up to $10 billion into preventing climate disasters. The plan would dwarf all previous grant programs of its kind. Now, the problem with this article is not that the money could go to that, but it talks basically about dealing with disasters. how America is going to start spending more money to stop, to prepare for hurricanes, to build up flood walls, to prepare for droughts, to prepare for forest fires. So we're going to start dumping billions of dollars more into dealing with those disasters. I am not opposed to that. I think we should deal with disasters. But if you're going to write an article like this, then I think you should probably talk about the actual cause of these disasters. They do say climate change in there, but they don't say like, oh, I don't know, capitalism. Oh, I don't know, consumerism. Oh, I don't know, fossil fuel use. I don't think they mentioned that in the article. I don't recall that part, but I know they weren't talking about capitalism. And anyway, it's kind of like talking about the symptoms of this problem, where we've gotten ourselves, what we've done to this planet. These are the symptoms without talking about the origins story, right? People like comic books, love a good origin story. Well, give the fucking origin story of the fires in California, of the waves crashing over Florida. All right, give the origin story. I'm sure it'll be exciting. I'm sure Stan Lee left some notes on the origin story of fucking California on fire before he left us. I'm sure Stan Lee jotted down some drawings, some notes. So that's how New York Times would normally cover something like this, like climate change. They'll cover the symptoms. They usually won't get to the heart of it. And that's why I found this other article kind of impressive, because it seemed to be going beyond that. Oh, and something else that article I just showed does is it talks about how great FEMA is. Now, FEMA does benefit some people at times. It's not like all of FEMA is garbage, but FEMA also does a terrible job a fair amount of the time. It goes into areas not understanding the area, not really knowing how to help, not talking to the local people of how they can genuinely help. And, they make a show of helping, but often failing or doing a horrible job, or sometimes doing nothing, or sometimes making it worse. They also have very racist policies on certain things. One of the things FEMA does is that they'll, let's say a house is damaged by a flood to the point it's almost irreparable. They'll pay the homeowner a higher than what they would get. They actually buy out the homeowner for a destroyed home, so that the homeowner doesn't walk away with $5 because their house was destroyed. Now, this sounds like a positive program. This person's home got destroyed by a flood. They actually get the money the house is worth rather than what it is worth now after the flood. This sounds good. Problem is, when it's actually analyzed, it's a rather racist program. FEMA goes in, buys up mostly property in white areas from white people and gives them money, and then ignores people in black areas and people of color. And the argument is that, well, FEMA's just doing that because that's where the money is. These are the white people. If you're talking, if just sheer numbers, sheer statistics, often live in the more expensive areas, so they get more money. It's like, yeah, but you don't need to do it that way. You don't need to run in and go, sorry, we just got to pay all the white people because their houses got destroyed, and not pay all the black people. So just something, just a feather to stick in your cap, or stick in your, there's some end to that expression, stick in your ass. I don't know. Put a feather in your ass. No, I know it's a feather in your cap, but it's just something, fact to have in your back pocket about FEMA is some of their programs also racist. Okay, so here is the article that does a better job than normal for New York Times, and it's in the opinion section. And it's by the way, what are they advertising up here? It wouldn't at all surprise me if they're advertising oil and gas at the top of the article about how climate change is destroying our lives and the planet. So this is by Roy Scranton, and it's titled, "I've said goodbye to normal. You should too. Climate change is upending the world as we know it, and coping with it demands widespread radical action." So this is an article saying that we need widespread radical action to deal with climate change. That's an article that the New York Times should have published let's say 20 to 40 years ago. I mean, let's at least say 20 years ago. But now they're getting around to it. And this actually a little bit shows how the zeitgeist, the cultural understanding of what we're going through is beginning to grow, even in your mainstream corporate outlets. However, as I mentioned, they put it in the opinion section. This is also one of the things they can point to and say, oh, we did cover that later. So who knows? Maybe that's the real reason it's here. But anyway, this article, I want to read several quotes from it. This guy starts out by saying some things similar to a Redacted Tonight episode I did when the pandemic was in its earlier stages, first couple months. He says in this article, in March last year, watching an unknown plague stalk the land, I felt fear, but I also felt hope. The hope that this virus, as horrible as it might be, could also give us the chance to really understand and internalize the fragility and transience of our collective existence. I hoped we might recognize not only that fossil fuel-driven consumer capitalism was likely to destroy everything we loved, but that we might actually be able to do something about it. Okay. Great points. And I had a similar hope that perhaps this pandemic would make people stop their frantic second-to-second social media flooded lives and actually look around them and pay attention to the world around them a little more, and that it could cause kind of an awakening. And so he's saying the same thing. However, I will say that while he added these qualifiers to the word capitalism, and it sounds like he added those because it gives us more information, right? Fossil fuel driven. Okay, he's criticizing fossil fuels. That's good to hear. Even that's a shift, right? From 10 years ago, you still, I don't, now maybe they also have Exxon, Chevron ads in New York Times, but 10 years ago, it's like half the pages of New York Times were Exxon and Chevron ads. So, when we do die, when we do go extinct, in about 5-6 years from now, let's remember to blame New York Times, because they were still doing fossil fuel propaganda. Maybe they still are. I don't read all their articles. I don't know if they're still doing that shit, but they were doing it as of a few years ago. But so he adds these qualifiers: fossil fuel driven consumer capitalism. And also, I like that he's criticizing consumerism. That's great. Good for this guy. However, by adding those qualifiers, it also gives a little cover to capitalism, right? Oh, he's saying if we stopped the kind of rabid consumerism, and if we stopped the fossil fuel part of capitalism, then we could have just really good capitalism. And so on one hand, I give him credit for criticizing capitalism. I think that's rare in your mainstream outlets and your corporate outlets. However, by adding the qualifiers, I think you're not getting to the true criticism of capitalism, which is basically profit over all else, profit over our own continued existence on this planet, profit over people, profit over environment. It is the idea of infinite growth on a finite planet. It is by definition a cancer that it grows until it kills the host. That is how it works. That is how it will always work. You can slow it down by putting these regulations on capitalism, but you'll never fully stop it to the point that it doesn't eventually grow large enough to rip those restraints off, to rip those regulations off, and then continue its destruction, extraction of anything profitable in this world. But okay, so that being said, let's continue. He says, as the pandemic has worn on, the desire to get back to normal has increased, and I worry that the hope for radical positive change has subsided. But we must not let it dissipate. We can't afford to, because we won't see quote unquote normal again in our lifetimes. Our parents and grandparents burned normal up in their American-built cars with their American lifestyles, their American refrigerators, and American dreams. And now China and India are doing it too, because capitalism is global and we sold it wherever we could. More than 3/4 of all industrial CO2 emissions have occurred since 1945, and more than half have occurred since 1988. Since we knew what global warming was and what a danger it posed, meaning more than half of all emissions have come since we understood, from the time we understood climate change. We've then continued to burn at least half of the global warming emissions. And these are, again, all great points. Very rare for the New York Times. All great points about the fact that we won't see normal again. I think that's true. Unless we just completely, after this pandemic, completely ignore climate change and try and live how we were. But of course, even then, first of all, that's just going to hasten our end times. It's going to hasten the end of our environment. But furthermore, it's the disasters have become so immense. I mean, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. And this past summer, it was just on fire. All of it was on fire. People couldn't breathe. They had to go outside with not masks on, but gas masks on. I mean, that is no existence. And that is not a normal. You saw the photos of San Francisco, bright orange at night. No, bright orange during the day. Bright orange and dim bright orange during the day. I mean, if that doesn't look like some sort of fucking dystopian Armageddon, then I don't know what does. But okay, so all great points there, talking about how this lifestyle cannot exist. I mean, they now, they say we would need 5 Earths for everybody on the planet to live like we do in America. It's just impossible. And now other countries are catching up, and we've exploited it all. And we have to find new ways to live and new technologies. But fucking ravenous capitalism cannot. You may find new technologies that help kind of delay the end, but not for long enough. Okay, so here's another important point that I have made many times, but that the New York Times has almost never made. It has jumped up and down. The mainstream corporate media jumped up and down about Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. And then right now you see them celebrating in a big way Biden rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. And they celebrated in a huge way when Obama led the world to signing the Paris Climate Accord. Oh my God, what a fucking wonderful human being. So here's another quote from the article. Let's see. I'll scroll down to the title there. But President Biden has recommitted the United States to the Paris Agreement, which is great, except that it doesn't really mean much, since the agreement's commitments are voluntary. And it might not even matter whether signatories meet their commitments, since their pledges weren't rigorous enough to keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels to begin with. According to Climate Action Tracker, a collaborative analysis from independent science nonprofits, only Morocco and Gambia have made commitments compatible with the goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and the commitments made by several major emitters, including China, Russia, Japan, and the United States, are highly insufficient or critically insufficient. Now, this is something that, thank God, is being said on the New York Times, maybe for the first time, but this is the opposite of everything the New York Times and your mainstream media has been telling you since Obama signed the goddamn thing. The Paris Climate Accord is borderline meaningless. Just look at the countries that stayed in it. How much have they stopped their emissions? Have they saved the planet? Because it was only us that pulled out, right? And man, did our mainstream media flip out when Trump pulled out of the meaningless Paris Climate Accords. However, positive note, I think Morocco and Gambia have got this, folks. I think they're gonna save us. I think Morocco and Gambia, they're gonna save us from ourselves. Okay, because I'm pretty sure as long as Morocco and Gambia control emissions, everything's fine. We're gonna be good here. No more forest fires, no more floods, no more droughts, no more hurricanes. Morocco, Gambia, on it. Boom. I always said Morocco and Gambia were going to save us. I always did. You know, a lot of people didn't believe me. I was like, fucking Gambia. Gambia's got this shit. People were like, you know, Lee, you shouldn't order your one thing of French fries inside a styrofoam container, and then I actually have them double the container, so a double styrofoam container, and then they put that inside a plastic bag, and I have them triple the plastic bags, so triple plastic bags, and then I asked for 42 plastic forks, so they put in 42 plastic forks. I just use one of them, and I throw out 41 of them, but I feel really good when I get to throw out all those forks, so I like to get a couple extra there, and then 49 knives, a couple extra of those just in case. You got to defend yourself while you're throwing out the forks. You know, you never know who might come after you. So I use the other plastic knives to defend myself while I'm throwing out the forks. Then I throw out the knives as long as the coast is clear. Then I get inside styrofoam container. Sometimes I have a third put on there, styrofoam container. And then I get down to my fries. I only order 2 fries. It's actually just 2 French fries because I don't want to get too full, you know. So it's just 2 French fries within the 3 styrofoam containers. And then I have that delivered to me. I do something weird. I don't know if you know you can do this. If you order with DoorDash, all you got to do is you request that they use a extra long Hummer limo to pick up the 2 fries because you know I want it delivered in style. And so while I was doing all that, people were like, "Lee, that's probably not a good carbon footprint." And I was like, "Gambia, motherfucker, Gambia." I hope you get the point. Gambia's going to get this. They're going to save us. All right. So thank goodness the New York Times has finally, in its opinion pages, admitted that the Paris Climate Accords borderline meaningless. And let's see if they'll continue to admit that in their other articles as they go on touting Biden as this fucking environmental hero. Let's see if they'll continue to admit that the Paris Climate Accords mean almost nothing. Okay, so let's go back for one more quote or 1 or 2 more quotes from this article. The next 20 years will be a period of deep uncertainty and tremendous risk, no matter what. We don't get to choose what challenges we face, but we do get to decide how we face them. The first thing we need to do is to let go of the idea that life will ever be normal again. Elsewhere, I've called this quote, learning how to die, unquote. There's a link there. I don't know what it refers to if he did another article on it. But so to continue the quote, beyond that, we need stop living through social media and start connecting with the people around us, since those are the people we'll need to depend on the next time disaster strikes. And disaster will strike. You can be sure of that. So we must begin preparing today for the next shock to the social order, and to the next, and to the next. All great points. And then he concludes with this. None of this will matter, though, if our preparations don't include imagining a new way of life beyond this one. After the end of fossil-fueled capitalism, don't need the qualifiers. After the end of fossil-fueled capitalism, not a new normal, but a new ethos adapted to the chaotic world we've created. So there's 2 key points in that quote. One is that climate change is climate chaos. It's already here. It's not something in the future. It is fucking here. Places are in drought. Places are seeing their wildlife die off. Places are on fire. There's floods. There's hurricanes. It's here. And we need to prepare by getting in touch with our communities, understanding how to deal with these things, talking with people, knowing people, checking in on people. A good example of this was a heat wave. I don't think it was this summer. I think it was probably last summer I read about this. Heat wave in Chicago. So a lot of places have heat waves, right? 2020 was the hottest year ever. It tied 2016, but both of the hottest years ever were in the past 5 years, which, what does that tell you? But heat wave in Chicago, and a fair number of people in Chicago don't have air conditioning, especially more poor people. And people were dying. Heat waves were literally just killing people. But they found afterwards that the Black community had far fewer deaths than other communities. And this had to do with the community knowing each other. This had to do with often poorer communities and various communities that are more in touch with who lives next door and are less transient. They're not moving every year to a new skyrise apartment. And so these communities knew who was elderly in their neighborhood and needed to be checked on in a heat wave, who it was that lived alone and likely wouldn't be able to take care of themselves. And let's be honest, a lot of older people are proud. I'm probably going to be one of those idiots who will sit there and just die rather than call someone up. And so it came down to whether the community knew, hey, so-and-so is 85, 90 years old, and there's a heat wave right now, and they live alone. I wonder how they're doing. And that's the type of thing we all need to be getting better at. I include myself. We all need to be getting better at this, getting in touch as a community. And so that's step one of that quote. The second part was about moving beyond capitalism. Now, he calls it fossil-fueled capitalism, but I think capitalism in general is the problem. You could switch from fossil fuels and it would help us a great fucking deal with climate change, but it's not going to stop environmental destruction. It's not going to stop environmental collapse. The plastics are filling the oceans. We're breathing microplastics. We're cutting down all the trees. So even without fossil fuels, you still need to stop capitalism. It's still infinite growth on a finite planet. And so this guy is Ray Scranton, or whatever his name was, is saying we need to make the preparations for imagining a new way of life, a time beyond this. And I think that's absolutely true. We cannot sit here thinking that Biden's going to save us, thinking that capitalism's going to save us, thinking we're going to buy our way out of these problems. We've got to start imagining the new systems. And capitalism, but really the corporations that are the winners of capitalism, the richest of the rich. And by the corporations, I mean the boards, the fucking multimillionaire or billionaire people that run the corporations, because corporations are basically a totalitarian structure. We don't have democracy in the workplace, except in very few examples. They will do everything they can to fight against this. This is why that we're in 2021, and this is one of the few criticisms, one of the few downright, we are fucked, we got to deal with this criticisms of capitalism I've ever seen in the New York Times. And I mean, and if you look at CNN and MSNBC, they don't know the word capitalism. You can't say capitalism on MSNBC without a fucking a thing comes down, a hood comes down, black bag comes down over your head and cinches, and then the person is they put the guests on rolly chairs, so after they've cinched the black bag over their head, they can just slowly roll them out while Chuck Todd goes, yeah, wasn't that guy funny? And they can just roll them out and then dump them into a pit titled "People Who Mentioned Capitalism" on MSNBC. So yeah, the reason that we've gone this long without a true discussion about this is because they own the systems, they own the media. So that's why I'm so fucking depressed. Depressed. I'm depressed by the world, but I'm suppressed. I guess I'm depressed on YouTube. You could say that. That's why I'm so suppressed. And so many others are that try and talk about these things. The outlets, the news outlets that are doing good coverage of this type of thing. Popular Resistance, for example, heavily suppressed. And that, so they will do anything to defend their profit over all else system. They will do anything. And it's up to all of us. And we need to be like a fucking line of warriors talking about evolving past capitalism so that each time they take one down, the next one steps up. That's the only way we're going to see true change. All right, I got to get out of here, but thank you guys. Please share this. I do these every single weekday, except sometimes. And check out my 2 podcasts, Common Censored, Government Secrets, TV shows called Redacted Tonight. It's all at leecamp.com. Thank you guys for joining me. Keep fighting.